On the Anthony Carlo show. How about that? What a creative name we have here. Of course, if you want to get fancy here, you could call this my spin-off show, as I originally came from AB Conversation with Ben Zeno, the hero, which I still do, and I'll plug that right now. Tuesdays at 6:30. You tune in right here to WICR on UStream. But anyway, just finished talking a little NBA, obviously with the All-Star festivities going on. I wanted to focus a little less on the All-Star festivities and talk a little bit about what matters most, and that's what the conferences have done up until this point to spread the wealth on this show. And I began my monologue today discussing what sport holds a special part in my, place in my heart, so why not jump into it now? To spread the wealth a little on the show, we'll jump into baseball, because you know what? That beautiful phrase, as I mentioned before, of pitchers and catchers and spring training players reporting in a few, short couple of weeks, is definitely pulling everybody from the slumber they've dipped into with the end of the NFL season. With that withdrawal, sort of symptoms going on. The end of the what a Super Bowl, what an end to the Super Bowl. But after that, everybody was pretty much, oh wow, the NFL season is over. And the NBA, as I mentioned, is, in my opinion, in a lull right now. Okay, with the All-Star break, I mean, you're not really going to be getting up for anything in the NBA right now. So why not look forward to baseball? And one topic I want to discuss on the remainder of this show is who New York is going to belong to this year. Okay? Now, this is an interesting topic for the fact that people are questioning for the first time in a real long time who the city is going to belong to, the New York Mets or the New York Yankees. Now, go back a couple of years ago, I'd probably get people turning off their radio, laughing maybe a little chuckle, maybe turn it off. And they say to themselves, what the hell is this guy talking about? There's no competition. Who is going to challenge the New York Yankees in their ownership of the city? Who? The New York Mets? I'm sorry, who is that again? But this year, to be fair, we have to cut the Mets some slack. And we have to be honest here. And we have to say to ourselves, does the city really still belong to the New York Yankees? And the answer to that, and I'm a Yankees fan, remember this, the answer to that is no. The answer to that is the city is up for grabs. And you have fans out there questioning whether or not the Mets have what it takes to actually take it. Now, here's the fact. The Mets are not a better team than the Yankees. And here's the other fact. The Yankees are not a better team than the Mets. Okay? Here is where we get into the real meat and potatoes of this. Both of these teams are now mediocre. So what does that mean? That means that neither team is better than each other. And what that means is they've both been brought down to an equal level, an equal playing field, which makes it very obvious that the city is up for grabs. And it's up for whoever decides to have a better year. Now, this is going to depend on a bunch of things, okay, for both sides. A lot of things are going to be dependent upon whether either of those teams can have good years. Health is one thing, okay? We go over to the New York Yankees. Masahiro Tanaka's elbow is already being called by Buster Olney on ESPN a ticking time bomb. That is not good. Let me break that down in layman's terms. Masahiro Tanaka was just signed a $200+ million contract to come pitch the baseball for the New York Yankees. This was a guy who came over from Japan, being a guy who was not only one of the best pitchers that sport has ever seen over there in Japan, but he was somebody who was a workhorse. This guy was throwing the next day after he had just thrown a complete game. When it came playoff time, they were using him more than once. He was basically the CC Sabathia of Japan over there, but 5 times more. And that questioned people. That brought up to people's minds. When he comes over here in New York, are the Yankees going to strike the bad luck penny again and wind up with a guy who's basically spent all of his money pitching over in Japan? And he's going to come over here and start becoming a person of wear and tear. Well, you know what? It hasn't been a good sign that halfway through the first major league season for him pitching for the New York Yankees, he went down with an injury, a season-ending injury that resulted in surgery. And when he was about to start the All-Star game with, I believe it was an 11-2 record, he wound up having to mail in the rest of the season. Now he comes back again, and already we're getting reports that his elbow is a ticking time bomb. Let me explain one thing for you. That doesn't mean anything good for the New York Yankees. Because if we're going to depend on CC Sabathia to take the load again, if we're going to depend on him to be the ace again, let me give you a little wake-up call. CC Sabathia hasn't been the ace of that staff in 3 years. He no longer can be the ace of that staff, okay? I'm convinced he has proven he no longer can be. He may come out this year and have a good year. Don't get me wrong. He may finally win 15 games again and get that ERA down below 3 again. He may. But are you really going to consider him the ace again? No. Because he's not going to win 20 games again. He is not going to be lights out like he was. He's not going to have a 2 ERA anymore, and he's not going to be your workhorse in the postseason pitching shutout game after shutout game. I'm sorry. It is just not going to happen. CC, unfortunately, has run his course a little bit, and he's on the decline. Does he have a couple more lives left in the MLB? He does. And he will be, I believe he'll come back and he'll be a better pitcher than he was last year. He'll have a solid year. But if you're going to come into this year and tell me Masahiro Tanaka is a ticking time bomb, what does that leave us with? That leaves us with relying on Sabathia to be the ace. That leaves us with relying on Ivan Nova and Pineda and these other guys who have proven that they can't stay consistently on the field, relying for them to be solid pitchers. Okay, Pineda, between pine tar and injury, has proven he cannot be a productive player. He came over from the Mariners, basically came up as a stud, a lot of potential. He was injury plagued. I talked a lot about this with Benzino and Rob Jiggity on AB Conversation a couple of days ago. There is a big difference between potential and production. Because if you cannot stay on the field and show and develop that potential everybody says you have, you will not be a great player. It's as simple as that. We see it across the board. Go to the NBA. Derrick Rose, okay? Up until this year, he hasn't been able to stay on the court. No matter how good he is, no matter how many MVP awards he's won, it was only one, he wasn't going to win anymore, okay? Because no matter how talented he is, if you can't stay healthy, you're going to be forgotten. And if you go to the Yankees pitching here, and Pineda is too busy getting caught more than once with pine tar on his neck and he's cheating, and somebody who hasn't been able to string together a bunch of healthy years so far in the MLB, you can't tell me going into the season you can rely on him. I won't buy it. I'll buy into his potential. Yeah, maybe Pineda can lead us to a 12, 15 game season, can be a solid 3 or 4 starter, but I can't buy into that. I can't bet on that. He hasn't shown me anything to prove that yet. And the same story with Nova. He has been good, and then he falls off the wagon, and he gets, he can't pitch anymore, or he gets hurt. So the Yankees pitching has a big, big question mark on it this year, as it does every year. And geez, what a surprise that is. No, it's not really a surprise, because every year we run into the same issue with their pitching. Now they made a splash. I shouldn't say that at all. Wow, let me retract that. That is the wrong usage there, because they did not make a splash in the offseason this year in free agency like they usually do, like they did last year when they signed McCann, Beltran, Ellsbury. They made a move. We'll go with that one, picking up Andrew Miller and putting him in the bullpen. One of the 3 lights-out pitchers for Baltimore last year out of that pen that helped that team go deep into the postseason to the ALCS. Big arm for them. Big acquisition for the Yankees. I love it. Do I love the fact they lost Robertson to the Tigers in the mix? No. Because you could really look at this as the fact is they remained equal. They lost Robertson, they gained Miller. Where have they made ground? Where really have they made ground? Aside from that, my final statement on the bullpen is this. It's going to be a good year. You've got Dellin Betances, you've got Andrew Miller, you've got those 2 guys leading the charge for you in the bullpen. Your worry, if you're a Yankee fan, will not be the pen. Your worry will be this. The offense, which was last in home runs, I believe, last year, and the pitching, the starting pitching. And I'll tell you one thing, folks. Those are 2 big areas of worry if you're hoping on this team going to the playoffs again, which they were not, just a little reminder here, were not able to do last year. So where do you make up the ground here? You're talking about an offense here that consists of a returning Alex Rodriguez. Now, Alex Rodriguez, listen, I talked about this with Benzino not too long ago on AB Conversation. If I'm talking Alex Rodriguez, if I'm talking A-Rod, if I'm talking about the Yankees not wanting to pay him the money he's going to get in incentives for passing different home run milestones, if I'm talking about the Yankees PR setting up an apology press conference for him, I am not talking on the right page. I am not focusing on the right information here. The right information, the right concern, if you're a Yankees fan right now for Alex Rodriguez, is that if he's going to be gutsy enough to come back and wear the pinstripes again and put himself in a position to be on the playing field, my concern is he doesn't embarrass himself. My concern is he produces. That's all I care about. I'm a moral guy. I care about steroids in baseball. Kenny doesn't agree with me. I care about the game not being masked with this steroid cloud. I care about that. But you know what I don't care about anymore? I don't care about A-Rod and his steroid saga. I've heard it. I'm not going to believe him anymore. I'm not going to listen to him in his apology press conference. Frankly, I don't care. I really don't care anymore about A-Rod. You know what I care about? I care about what numbers he's going to put up. I care about how he's going to help this team. If you're going to be gutsy enough to come back to this team and mouth off about your home run records and getting your money for passing different records, then be gutsy enough to be an actual contributor on this team. Because that's all I care about from you, A-Rod, right now. And to be honest with you, I'm being objective right now, but you know what? I'm an A-Rod fan. I like the guy, okay? I'm not somebody who's going to hate on him and continue to bash him down for what he's done. So many other players have done the same thing. End of story. In any sport, in any league. But this is the fact. This is the straight-up point here. A-Rod, you need to produce, okay? And if anybody else on the other end of it is expecting him to produce, I'll be honest with you, don't keep your hopes up too high. Because what he's going to do is a good year is going to be for him this year, maybe 15 home runs, maybe a 250 batting average, maybe he drives in 50, 60 RBIs. He's a 40-year-old coming back who wants to play third base but is not because the Yankees signed a third baseman, Chase Headley. He's coming off 2 hip surgeries, and the best he'll do is give you a little bit of pop in that lineup, a little bit. I can talk all about A-Rod as I want, but here's the rest of the facts about the Yankees before I quickly talk to you about the New York Mets before I get kicked off here. Go over to shortstop. You've got Didi Gregorius. He's replacing the best shortstop in Yankees history. He's replacing somebody who was still producing offensively, not to the ability we've known him to produce, but he was still getting some job done offensively until he retired, Derek Jeter. Yeah, he batted, 250 last year for most of the year. Really didn't put up any close offensively to the numbers he normally puts up, but here's the deal. He got the job done. With Gregorius, I'm afraid offensively we have no confidence at all. He's going to hold down the fort defensively at short, but if you're talking offensively, Gregorius is really going to have to prove a lot this year. You go over to second, Stephen Drew is the same deal. Not only is he learning another position over there at second base, going back to his roots, but we're expecting somebody to hit who really has not proven that he can hit. He's had earlier in his career, his offensive years, no more. Hasn't done that in a while. First base, Mark Teixeira, he's another story, okay? Because not only do we deal with one obstacle with him, batting $150 the first couple of months of the season because for some reason he can't hit when the beginning of the season starts, but we're dealing with another obstacle. The guy doesn't want to play baseball anymore. It's becoming more apparent with all of his off-the-field endeavors, however you say that word, or his off-the-field endeavors, that he doesn't want to play baseball anymore as much as he used to. He's got business stuff going on. He's got this organization. He's got his hand in this industry. I got to read that article again. I got to quote for you all the things he's doing off the field. Smart businessman, yes. But if you're going to put those priorities above you being a player for the Yankees that produces, a productive major league player, you're in the wrong business here. And not to mention the fact that he hasn't been able to stay healthy on the baseball field in a long time due to his wrist injuries. What I'm boiling down to here, folks, is that Brian McCann is going to be expected to have a big bounce back year. Jacoby Ellsbury is going to be expected to have a big year. Carlos Beltran is going to be expected to stay healthy. Brett Gardner, who's being dubbed the new face of the franchise, yawn, is going to have to be expected to have another solid year. A-Rod is going to be expected to have to produce to this team somehow. Gregorius is going to have to be expected to do something offensively and not only play solid defense. Same with Drew. Point here is the Yankees are going to have a lot of things go right for this team in order to be a contender this year. Over in Queens, we have a team that is in a lot better shape than the New York Yankees right now if you look at in the terms of the plethora of young arms they have. The New York Mets are, coming back with the return of their stud, Matt Harvey. I don't care what anybody says. This guy, he's the real deal. Matt Harvey, and this is what Mets fans are waiting for. Matt Harvey's return. The guy sat out last year, had a big surgery, could not pitch. You know what? He's back, and he is ready to rock. And I don't think he'll have maybe, it may, I won't say that. It may very well be he has a Cy Young year. He came into the league pitching that way. What's to say, he won't do it again this year? I'm going to say, since he missed a full year and is coming back off of a surgery, it won't be that good, but it'll be good. Okay, you can count for 15 to 20 wins. You can count for that. If you're thinking of 20 plus, you know what? I don't know about that, but you can count for a good year from Harvey. You go around to the other guys, okay? You've got Noah Syndergaard. You've got, of course, John Neese. He's been around a couple of years, but still, he can be a solid pitcher for you. You've got your Zach Wheeler. You've got these guys. You've got your Jacob DeGrom. You've got your Henry Mejia. You've got your youth that has shown you they can be lights out arms if they can put it all together. And if they put it all together, you can bet on a solid starting rotation for the New York Mets this year. And that's a lot to say because it all starts with pitching. A winning team all starts with pitching. And if you compare the two rotations, yeah, the Yankees have have that potential to have that solid starting rotation, and yeah, the Mets, they both have this potential there. It's going to be who can do it first. And I'm going to put my money on the Mets because they're younger, they're healthier, and their rotation, I think, is more believable to being a better starting rotation and staying healthy and putting it all together than the Yankees starting rotation. Now, the Mets run into their issues offensively, okay? David Wright, I believe, is on the decline. Shortstop, Wilmer Flores has not shown you anything really to hang on to. Second base, Daniel Murphy will give you a solid year. He will put up some numbers. First base, as of now, Lucas Duda is a power-hitting first baseman. We'll see how long that goes. Travis d'Arnaud has a lot to prove behind the plate. Juan Lagares has shown us more than we've need to see with his glove. We want to see a little more of his bat. They went out and they signed Michael Kadire. The guy is not a spring chicken anymore. We'll see. It'll be a question of whether or not how good he can be. He'll be good, but the question is whether or not he can stay healthy and whether or not he can be as good as the Mets are hoping he can be. And the other thing is Curtis Granderson linking up again with Kevin Long, former Yankees hitting coach, where he coached him over in New York with the Yankees. They worked well together. The question here is, can Curtis Granderson come back with a solid year here after he didn't do that last year? So when it all boils down to it, and I'll do this on my next show. I'll see you next week. We'll talk about this. We'll do a little more of a deeper analyzation. We'll compare position to position. But what it boils down to is two teams who have areas of potential, but things to prove. And neither of them have proven them recently, and neither of them have guaranteed to me, you, or anybody else that they will prove it. So that is why I cannot give the city before the season starts to either team, and that is why neither team is better than each other. They're at an even playing field, and New York is up for grabs. On that note, we will see you next week. The Anthony Carlo Show will be back here Thursday at 1 to 2, right here at WICR. Head on to Ustream. All you got to do is search WICR, and you will be able to catch me. Once again, thank you for everybody tuning in. Chelsea's up next. I don't know what the name of her show is. I'm sorry, but she'll be right on after these messages. And everybody have a great rest of the week and weekend. I'll see you next week.
Rocking New Rochelle the old school way with the Rock of Ages Radio Hour on WICR.